Welcome to Choppin It Up, a podcast powered by Journey, where we talk about free, how people got to where they are, and their career journeys, pun intended. All right, let's chop it up. Hello. Today on Choppin It Up, we have Marcus Cooksey, CEO and founder of DUKE.ai. Marcus, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Will, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Absolutely, man. It's always fun to get a chance to chop it up with you. I actually met you on LinkedIn, which is funny because it seems like it's where I meet most of our really cool podcast guests. And it's been a pleasure getting to know you over the last year or so, and then meeting you in person in Chicago too, man. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you for hosting me there. I think I sent the email, a DM through LinkedIn, said I'll be in Chicago, and you was like, okay, let's meet up. And man, you was true to your word. We met just on short notice. So
yeah, man. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and dive in here. I always like to start with a fun fact. You've got a really interesting one, so give us the rundown.
Yeah, before I started Duke, I worked at a large Fortune 500 company requiring me to travel to Asia. And so I've been all over Asia. I've been over in India, Taiwan, China, all points in China. In fact, I remember flying to 5 different cities in China in a 4-day time span. I was doing a technical show. I was like a rock star everywhere. We were going from Shanghai, Guangzhou, Beijing, Shenzhen, Xiaoming, all those different places in between, and then Taiwan. So India was very interesting. And I think that experience have helped me develop culturally. If you look at my board, we've got people from India, Asia, China on our board. And so it's just made my life, my world much bigger. And it was an incredible experience. So, yeah.
Man, I don't know if you and I have ever dug into this, but I do love travel a ton. And I think exactly the same. It helps broaden my perspectives on the world. And I started traveling, I think the year after I graduated college. I went to Germany for the first time. I was like, oh my gosh, look how big the world is. But it definitely changes the way you look at things in a good way. Oh,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Germany is a really great place to go visit. That was one of my first stops for 6 months out of school. So glad you got a chance to enjoy it.
Yeah, we'll have to dig into that. I'm sure we'll be able to talk about it for hours. So let's dive in here, man. I would love to learn the origin story for you, man. Early school years, early years stuff. Kind of talk to us about that.
Man, I had what I would call a typical normal background, father, mother, but it was like gritty, right? We were a family that didn't have money, but we had everything. Car, but you needed to tap 2 wires to make it run. Right?
Yeah.
But went to private school. My parents sacrificed and made sure I could go to private school. And then I had that the movie Lean on Me experience where you go from private school to public school, seeing fights and all that type of stuff. Those were the early days. So I'm a mixture of what you would call suburb with a little street hustle, with a little grind. And you take all of that and you put that guy in college, and you get a gentleman and then you put him with computer science. Now you've got this gritty guy who's got a father like MacGyver, but now he can put some real, knowledge behind making stuff work with understanding programming and electronics. And man, you got trouble. And that's who I am now. I'm an educated MacGyver.
Nice. Well, that's a fun description of, the steps to get to where you are. Before we start really peeling back some layers, give us a 10,000 foot overview of what you're up to today. We'll really dive in later, but give us a 10,000 foot overview of Duke, and then we'll start really attacking.
Just as an overview, in our industry, freight, there are so many inefficiencies. And one of them we've identified is anything that do with manual processing of documents, whether it's payments and so forth. And really what we've built is AI to help AI agents that actually alleviate that work so that we can focus on more important things like sales and marketing and so forth. So that's what we're focused on.
Awesome, man. So you talked earlier a little bit about education. Where exactly did you grow up?
So I grew up in a place in Dallas called Pleasant Grove.
Got it.
Yeah. So the name is not indicative of the environment.
Understood.
Name for you.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm from the west side of Chicago. I grew up in Maywood, and typically when I'm explaining to people the dynamics of, the west side of the city right outside, it's like, you might think it's the suburbs, but it's not really what it is.
Yeah. No, great place to grow up though. It was, I wouldn't trade it. I loved it.
Totally. So you talked a little bit about stuff that you were interested in and maybe the experience of, being technical and working through stuff at an early age. What type of stuff were you interested in when you were younger that maybe influenced, what you're doing today at Duke?
What's interesting is my grandmother, when I was little, and I'll answer that question. I said, what type of child was I? Because, my grandmother was around. She said, you were a very peculiar kid growing up. And so when I look back and think about the stuff I was interested in, I would look up airplanes and I'd just be wondering how is it maintaining its flight and what are the people doing in the airplanes. I fantasized a lot about how stuff worked. And I recognized my gift when I was losing in everything else academic. I was good. I was great athletically, but I was losing in everything academic until I won my 6th grade science fair project. And that's when I recognized I had this little thing that's trying to understand the world that no one is really perceptive to, or very few people are perceptive to. And that's the world I was living in.
What was your 6th grade science project?
Oh, it was how light reflects and refracts in different types of materials, whether it's oil, water, prisms. And so the whole thing was then, and then the different type of light that would actually pass through and what didn't, and then how much of it would bend. And so I basically built this out of cardboard boxes, and then I had a light bulb that would actually pass light through these. You would say you could always think of them as these little tubes that had different colors, red, green, and blue. Little did I know that I was setting myself up for a career in imaging, which is what I later did when I was at TI doing digital signaling processing for video applications. So you're talking about digital streaming, encryption, H.264 decoding, all that kind of stuff. Didn't know that I was setting that up, but that's what that first project was that I won the first place in.
Man, those acronyms you just dropped and abbreviations, I have no idea what that means, but I know it's some big brain stuff. So I'm excited to dig in. So, So let's talk a little bit about school, man. You talked about going to private school, then going to public school. Walk us through a little bit before college and then some of the experiences you've had since then.
Yeah. So my mom, the public school that was my home school, my mom was a little concerned about me going there. And so she sent me to a private school. And the private school was great because it still gave me an element of keeping my cultural identity. So it wasn't kind of like some of the typical private schools where you're removed out of your culture. It was very cultural sensitive. So I learned about myself and my history and my culture while also learning other cultures and facts and just basic academics. So that was a great experience. And those kids, they were like my brothers and sisters growing up until we couldn't afford private school anymore. Some things changed in my family. And then, I went to public school. Like I said, I had that lean on me moment. I saw a kid get beat down first day of school. And I was trying to hold back the tears because I didn't want to be next. So it was it was a totally different experience after that. But no, I learned to acclimate to that environment, got a little tougher. As a person, learn how to be a little bit more aware, but met great friends as well and managed to stay out of trouble.
Nice. So when you were in high school, did you have the same interest in just science, technology type stuff? And did that shape what you ended up getting into in college?
Yeah, the first few years, basketball took over.
Okay.
And that's what the focus. The engineering was still there, kind of focused on my grades. I liked that. I enjoyed the science, but basketball took over. I started growing and playing basketball. That was my focus and really was aspiring to go to a D1 school and ended up going to private school. But one of the things that inspired me was television. I actually saw a gentleman on TV. He's a black engineer named Dwayne Wayne from a show called Different World. So when I saw
great TV show. What a TV show.
Yes, man, bring back the old show.
Bring it back.
Bring them back, because that inspired me. That came out during my last years in high school, and that's who I wanted to be. And believe it or not, that character used to travel China. He had the baddest girls, all of that stuff, and so I started modeling my life after him. So that's when that's when it kind of rekindled.
Man, it's so funny that you say that. One, because it's an iconic television show in Black culture, incredible TV show, but a cool example of somebody that you see on the screen. You're like, that could be me. I could go do that stuff. I could be an engineer. That's a massive impact on your life, right? And so there's probably a lot of kids that look up to you now and see what you're doing, and you're doing the same thing for them from afar, which is really cool.
Yeah, man, you talking about being able to pour back in?
Yeah.
Because of what you just said, that's the part of what I do today that I love just as much as building the AI. The number of young people that have come through my company and that I reach out to. Sometimes, I'm not saying I'm a rock star, but I could be walking down the street and people are like, hey, Marcus, I know you. And I don't know them directly, but they know of me. And so to know that I'm not maybe having the same impact as Dwayne Wayne, maybe some point in the future, but to know that I'm influencing different people of all different kinds of cultures, and and we'll get into this later on, because as much as I learned about about minorities, I started learning as I started running my business that there's another disenfranchised group, and there are people who have disabilities or military vets or various other people, and so now that breadth of people who I feel like have these great superpowers, right? I tell my wife, I said, I feel like I'm Xavier, Professor X from X-Men. I've got all these people with these superpowers. They don't know how to use them yet. And my goal is to help these mutants tap into their powers. So anyway, I'm going to
another really good TV show, man. I grew up watching A Different World and X-Men, Professor X, and all that. I love it, man. So let's talk a little bit about college. Did you end up playing ball in college? Did you play basketball?
I did. I played ball for a little bit, and one thing I learned, I couldn't do it. Now, I have a son right now going off to play football, and he's wanting to be a medical doctor. I think I can help him a little bit. But at that time, it was really difficult for me to maintain my grades and play basketball. So I ended up quitting playing basketball, believe it or not, to pursue my engineering degree.
Hey, man, you got it done. So that's what, you did what you had to do.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Early
career stuff, you get your engineering degree. What's the next step?
Find a job, get out of the house, make some money.
Fair.
And I did that. Got a job at not a startup, but it was an established company here in Dallas. And then, I moved to Florida. That was in telecom. Spent a lot of time in telecom, moved to Florida, stayed there for about 6 years. But I felt like a lot of the development I was doing was surface layer. And when I say surface layer, I wasn't getting, you remember, I like to see what's underneath the computer. Why is it when I touch this button, something on the screen works? And why does this video, display on my screen and all those types of things? And so I wanted to get into really core embedded engineering. And so I ended up moving back to Dallas and got a degree and started working at Texas Instruments, which, allowed me to develop kind of low-level software on chips for device drivers for mobile phones, set-top boxes, all those types of things. And so that is where I think I got reconnected with some of the hard scientists, hearts portions of engineering, board circuitry, and combined with computer.
So in that stint, what was the coolest thing that you worked on?
Coolest thing I worked on was a project called Project D. They came to us and we didn't know it was Lab 126. And if you know who Lab 126 is, the R&D arm of Amazon. Oh. And it was a stealth project for almost 2 years. And I got a chance to lead that project. And they said we need 8-channel microphone input with beamforming with a microphone array that allows us to cancel out noise and all of this type of stuff. We didn't know what it was. We thought it was a remote control for their TV or whatever. I wrote the MP3 player in this particular device, and then we had team members that came in. We built the architecture and we gave it to them. And after 2 years, we heard that Amazon was releasing the Amazon Echo. And we said, oh my God, that's what we've been working on. So it was a secret project, even when we were working it on with them. I spent many times over in San Jose helping them to, build that out. So to date, I would say at that time, that was the kind of the coolest project I had worked on.
That's super cool. What company were you with at that point?
Texas Instruments.
Oh, okay, cool.
Texas Instruments, yeah.
Nice. Okay, so you were in Texas, moved to Florida. When you were in Florida, was that with Texas Instruments as well?
Well, no, that was with another company. That was with Siemens. So I moved to Florida, worked at Siemens. That was in telecommunications. So at that time, what was the pivotal thing happening at that moment? If you remember, telephone connections were made either analog or in a very digital way, where you had you almost think about, you had people that would do patchworks. And so that had transformed to being more digital, where everything was automated, right? So there was a connection between what I'm doing now at Duke with that. So you go from people manually patching calls together. It was digital. But at that time, what I was working on was transmitting voice audio over internet, which was something total radical at that. Today, that doesn't make sense. But in 1999 and early 2000, voice processing and over long distances using internet was new. And that's what I was working on then.
Nice. Okay. You've had a lot of really cool experiences so far. We're not even through to the good stuff yet. So it's sweet.
Yeah.
What year was that?
That was 1999, 2000.
Okay. 99, 2000. You go back to Texas for Texas Instruments?
I come back to Texas in 2006.
Okay.
Back to Texas. So from 1999 to 2006, into 2005, I was in Florida working on voice over IP applications. 2006, I come back to Texas and start working at Texas Instruments, which is an iconic company at Texas.
Iconic company. Give us the rundown, man. What were you doing there?
Digital signaling processing. So digital signal processing, most people think of TI as making calculators, but if you remember, the earliest products they had was the Speak and Spell. It was one of the first toys that talked. And what ended up happening is that required digital signal processing, which means you take something analog. So basically, everything we do, speech, is nothing more than waves. And those waves hit, let's say, a sensor. And that sensor now converts that analog wave into a digital pattern. And now once it's digital, you can do a lot of incredible things like removing a lot of noise, enhancing the audio, and amplifying, attenuating a lot of things, and then playing that back out. And so that's what I did. So I did a lot of digital signaling applications for voice, video applications, and then ultimately moving into self-driving cars.
Oh, okay. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So how long were you at Texas Instruments?
I was there 15 years.
15 years. And 15 years. When you were working through all these different pieces, all these different projects, was there something that happened that made you go, I'm going to go this direction, right? Maybe a project, maybe you saw something that kind of sparked your interest?
It's probably not the answer you're going to hear. Probably not for that question. No, what happened is we had a layoff.
Okay.
There was a layoff back in 2014, and a whole division was shut down, and I'm seeing friends I knew leave. And I said, that may be me next. So you need something that will insulate you from a layoff. So that forced me to start thinking about products and opportunities outside that allowed me to have control and ownership, which was to be an entrepreneur. So I started exploring all types of side projects, from rental property to digital signage and trucking. And you'll learn about how I got my own trucking business. And I was doing a lot of research about different types of businesses that I could be an owner of, to hedge myself in case another layoff came, and in fact be able to embrace that layoff.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be taking care of yourself and your family throughout, these different waves of challenges. So, good on you for being proactive enough to put yourself in a position to have options.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you left in 2021, before 2020. When did you leave Texas Instruments? You said you were there 15 years.
So I left, what was it, like 2019? 2020. And so at that time, I had this incredible opportunity. I was running a trucking business while I was working at TI. So that's a hint there. Don't quit your main hustle until you've gotten some validation from your side hustle.
Yeah. What year did you start the trucking company?
2015.
Oh man. Okay. So you've been at it for a little bit. It wasn't brand new.
I was floundering those first 2 years, right? I bought a truck with the wrong fifth wheel, and all kinds of stuff. Today you can pay for a course. People give courses out, or no, they don't give them out, but they make you pay money. Yeah. But that stuff didn't exist, and so I was just making mistakes, and then figuring out money and financing, and so. But we got our groove once we started finding a niche, which was hazmat, hazardous material, and we started making some pretty good money there. And so once I got the processing together, I was like, it may be time to switch. But the problem I had, Will, was finance and accounting. Having been a business developer manager at TI, so I wasn't just an engineer, I ran a business. We always focused on finances. That was a hard part for me to figure out in terms of running a trucking business with so much income and expenses going out daily. Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about the ins and outs of the trucking company, because we love trucks around here. So what type of equipment were you running? Dry vans, 53s?
Like I said, I bought the wrong fifth wheel. So the fifth wheel I purchased was for hazardous materials for tanker.
Understood.
Well, I didn't have a driver with that endorsement. I didn't have any kind of credentials that would allow anybody to allow me to run some hazardous material stuff. That's a new business owner. Yeah. So I had to go spend maybe another $5,000-$6,000 to get the right fifth wheel to do dry van. So we spent some more money, got dry van, got a driver, and that's where we started. And I took a load from Texas to California to Philadelphia, back to Texas, and I think I netted. The business netted like $600, and I think I spent like $1,900 on that trip. And I was like, this doesn't make good business sense.
Tough. Yeah, that's not going to get it done.
Doesn't make good business sense. So after that, I started doing a little research. My driver, who was my cousin at that time, he was the one that convinced me to go into trucking. He said, cuz we can actually focus on hazardous material. I've got great driving record. So we drive to El Dorado, Arkansas, to this not little company. And we're like 6 months, maybe 8 months been in operation. And we put a proposal to them that we could run their hazardous material. They must have been desperate. And sure. They gave us the opportunity, but we never looked back after them, man.
That's awesome. And as you built up the trucking company, how many trucks were y'all running?
We got up to like 5 trucks.
Nice.
So we got up to 5 trucks within a short period of time. Yep.
Nice. Okay. So 2014 through 2019, running the trucking company, building that up, saw some challenges with the accounting and the finance piece. When did that start to peak its, head out and go, this is a problem. We got to figure out how to fix this.
It was the day that I was needing some financing. It was the time when I said, we need financing to sustain this business. And the banks kept asking, but I knew they were going to ask for this. They were saying, we need a P&L, we need a cash flow statement, and we need to see like your run rate. Then fortunately, we were using tools that were available at that time, but we had to retroactively do that because we weren't doing it in a persistent way.
Right.
But that forced us to now enter all this stuff in and show it. Fortunately, we received the funding. We received a $150,000 check.
Nice.
Funding that we got from a financial institution.
Got it.
But that was painful to do. And to the point, though, that the next truck I purchased, I didn't put any money down. And I figured I had cracked the code.
Got it.
Finances together, being able to demonstrate cash flow, and then optimizing your fleet operations, you can run a good successful trucking business. So that's how I went from maybe 2 trucks to 3 trucks in just like a few months.
Nice. Okay. So when did you start the pivot from the trucking company to developing Duke?
I don't sleep much. Okay. And so at that time I was running a trucking business, and then I was doing prototyping with Duke.
Okay.
So I was actually writing the first lines of code, starting at 10 p.m. until like 2 p.m. Writing code. And so I basically was using, I'll tell my secret because I'll let anybody do it. We were using kind of open source OCR technology to prove it out.
Yeah.
Once I verified that it could work, we started, I tapped my co-founder, Vish Puntagunta. We worked at TI together. He was working on something with his wife's medical practice that was automating the back office for her medical practice. He had a portion of the tech and I had the portion of the tech, and we combined it. And we said, he said, I think this will work more in freight than for medical because I can't get HIPAA compliant in the first place.
Right.
Let's focus on freight. So we put the IP together and we started Duke in 2018. But that discussion we had was in 2017.
Okay. So it's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
A long time coming.
So had the initial conversation in 2017, started putting the tech together between the two of you in 2018. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. What happens next? We start putting those pieces together.
Yeah, you come in, you start out with a web application.
Yeah.
Web application was to prove that we can take a document, send it, be processed, and then you're trying to use AI to do all the work that an accountant would do in real time and then generate a report. So the web application was the first thing. That's not something sustainable because drivers not going to use the web application, but we have to prove it. Right. So the first 2 years of the company, we're just doing R&D. Will this work? Does it work? No, it doesn't. Scrap it. But I'll tell you, Vish and I, we started and I said, well, we'll have a keyboard that allows people to type in and enter, the categories. And he said the most profound thing that actually changed and set the foundation of the company. He said, this is DUKE.ai. If people have to enter the data, then we fail them. We don't need a keyboard, so the design of the app won't have a keyboard. They will just upload their documents and it will just work. And that has been our philosophy ever since then. We'll talk about Slim, but it should just work.
Love that. Okay. And the idea behind Duke to begin with was image processing, ideally to help with the back office accounting type stuff.
Yep, that was it.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay. So take us from, let's say, 2018 through 2020 as you all begin to accelerate, keep building the product out. What type of stuff was going on during that time frame?
We're still trying to build out. The first versions of the mobile app are rolling out. We start out with iOS, get a little feedback. I was going to truck stops, watching people download the app, seeing frustration on their face, going to our engineering team saying, hey, we need to change this. Yeah. We come out with the Android. So we now have 2 apps and we're doing the same thing. We're testing out, getting early feedback. And so that's what the first 2 years, we just didn't have a product out there. We were just building the product. And then 2020 happened and then COVID, that shut it down. And I always tell people, it's a good thing you don't have a crystal ball. Yeah. Had I had a crystal ball, I would have never started Duke. I would have never quit my job at TI. There was a lot of things I wouldn't have done because I would have saw what the future and saw what the danger was ahead of me.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the scariest stuff is on the other side of where that danger is, right? That's where all the opportunity is. And it's a good thing you didn't have a crystal ball because that might have scared you out of, working through the stuff that you've had to do to get to the business to where it is today.
Yeah. What do they say? Go out on the limb.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's where the fruit is.
Man, I love that. Actually, I've never heard that. I've heard the phrase go out on a limb, but I didn't hear that. I've never heard the end of it. So I like it. Okay. So 2020, talk us through the rest of it, right? COVID starts. I'm assuming that presented some unique challenges for you all, but what happens next?
Oh, COVID is a lot of this. Yeah. For health reasons and the health of my business and the health of all my family and friends. Yeah. There's a lot of that. Yeah. A lot of prep. But at that time, it was more challenging. I lost 2 of my main engineers. I had to roll up my sleeve. You remember I'm Xavier from X-Men. So if I got to go to battle, I still know how to go to battle. So I started back writing code, hired another gentleman. He's still with us. And we banged out the final part of the product. One person came to us and said, I like your app, but my problem is getting paid. This was a carrier.
Okay.
And they explained to us what they have to do to get paid. So you have to remember what Duke is. It's a document processing imaging solution for accounting, but that doesn't mean it couldn't be used for a different application. In fact, Duke stands for Developmental Understanding of Known Examples Using Artificial Intelligence. So we train the computer using known examples and using the methodology of AI to learn it. So only thing it took is for us to now adapt that use case for accounting for payments. And when they explained to us what that was in 2020, we came out with our first kind of, rough draft of a automated invoicing payment type of solution.
Awesome. Okay. So the first iteration of it was just image processing.
Yeah. Image processing for accounting.
The second iteration, walk us through now what you all developed at that point.
At that point, we had this ability to read a rate confirmation, and then the carrier doesn't have to enter stuff into a portal or invoice. Duke would automatically create an invoice based on the rate confirmation. We didn't have a lot of the audit there, but it would be able to read and extract all the information to create the invoice. And on that invoice, it was a very elaborate invoice. It was taking off 30 different data points off of that rate confirmation: pickup location, load ID, stop, weights, and all that kind of stuff. And that was the first usage of it. Yeah.
Okay. And in the beginning, you were helping carriers to get paid, work through their invoices and stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
What year was that?
That was like the tail end of 2020.
Tail end of 2020. Okay. So walk us through the next steps. I know things continued to evolve and there were more use cases. So going into 2021, what's next for the business?
So I'm pitching at a pitch competition, and someone who was the president of a factoring company was there, and he heard me pitch, and I was talking about how we had the ability to automate invoicing. And he said, will this work on the other side, where if we receive millions of these documents, can your AI parse into those documents and then do some validation to make sure that the BOLs are there, that the rate confirmations are correct, the notice of assignments are? And I said, there's no reason why we couldn't. So we started to do not a pivot, but we started adding onto the product this back office automation for factoring. And we deployed it to a pretty large, I won't say their name, but a pretty large factoring company in the industry.
Nice.
Purchased it. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome, man. It's got to be really cool to see the product go from, I guess, open source validation to somebody asks, can you do it? And you say, no reason why not. And they end up purchasing it and using it as an option to help them be more efficient.
That's it.
That's super cool. So 2021, worked through that, continued to bolster the product so that it was able to help with back office factoring type stuff. Catch us up to present. Any updates on what's accelerated over the last, that would be, so 22 through 24.
Yeah. So in 20, I would say 23, it was from 22 to 23, late 22 to 23, it was a realization. It was a realization that I didn't understand coming from tech. So coming from a true tech background, this says nothing against people in freight. So when I worked at TI, everyone was an engineer. In fact, I often would scratch my head and I was like, how am I working with these guys?
Yeah.
Right. Because it was a tech environment. Even your competitors were working together to build the best kind of architecture, open source, that we could all use to build great products. Like, that environment didn't exist in freight, and it still doesn't.
Yep.
And we'll talk about that later, how we need to start bridging my tech boys, bringing them in here, and then setting this thing on fire. So the problem we were having during those times is we had developed a whole product, and we were walking into places and saying, here's our whole product, put it into your system. What we didn't realize is that, yeah, that's nice, Marcus, but we're not quite ready for all of that.
Yeah.
We still want a little hand holding along the way. We still believe there's a human touch that's needed in freight because we're different from everybody else. Even though a plane takes off automated, even though a lot of stuff is automated, freight for some reason needs a human all the time.
Yep.
So we have to take a step back, and even though we still have those end products, Will, we say, you know what, let's not force feed this whole solution to people. Why don't we give people the tools they need without having to spend a lot of money in trying to develop the AI because they may not have that the experience? Let's remove our pride, because some of it was our technical pride in the way. And why don't we allow people to build some stuff on their own? So what we did was we created what we call SLIM. Everybody talks about LLM, but what we created was a small language inference. Nothing. Inference means deployed instance with input coming in and data out model for freight document processing. All that means is that we have a finely tuned LLM that only understands freight document processing. Now it's becoming smart every day. Someone did put something up there yesterday and I was like, wow, we didn't train it for that. And that's kind of scary. Yeah. But anyway, but that's what it's for. What does that mean? So that means I am a software provider. I'm a TMS. And I have this workflow extraction problem that today my customers have to enter in manually. Well, with a quick integration with our API, it's a pass of that document to our API. You get the results back plus the document, and you integrate it in your system. We talked to a customer today. He's got these BOLs, and you can't do anything with the BOL. It's got so much data on there. And yes, you can OCR. If anybody sees OCR, it's not in a structured manner at all that you can do nothing with. The key is being able to put it in a way that makes sense. And when he saw the output of what we were doing, he was like, that's what we need. I would have never thought of that application, but I'm glad that we removed our pride and allowing other people to build their own custom use cases and applications using Duke Slim.
I can only imagine the opportunities that are opened because you can take really good tech and allow people to apply it specifically to some part of their business to accelerate whatever it is they're trying to work through.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. And we did it in a simple way. So let's say, for instance, you have a user interface or graphical interface. We've got these drag and drop user interface plugins that doesn't require you to develop a whole user interface. So we've done it in a way such that it makes it easier for you to, for clients to go from 0 to 60, so to speak, in a real rapid fashion. So,
people like to move quick, man. So that's helpful to be able to get in and get busy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if we think about the developed product and then you have Slim, the developed product itself, any particular people that it's serving today? You mentioned factoring companies, any other organizations that the product typically serves today?
Yeah, so we've integrated with, of course, we have our carriers. So the carriers, of course, are using it for bookkeeping. So they connect to their business bank account, and Duke does all the work. So you don't have to take pictures, right? We even now take digital feeds to automatically categorize it. But we have TMSs that are using Duke. And it's kind of this use case I said before. Load entry, if you're not using EDI, I mean, I'm not sure how many people are using EDI, you probably know, but from what we understand, most of the TMS partners, we say they probably don't have 5% of their customers using EDI. And so that means you're kind of manually doing a lot of your loads in your TMS. So now, we have one of our TMS customers win a company, and they said the only reason why we chose them is because of this feature. Otherwise, it looks just like every TMS that's out there.
I love that.
So that's one application. Like I said, we're talking. One company reached out to us. They're like, we're trying to do pricing, and how do we get all this data from these documents and get more information? So we're starting to find a larger opportunity beyond what we could see. But right now, those are kind of the core areas we're focused on. But I think there's going to be more
Yeah.
I don't want to limit to my limited imagination. People out there have their own frustrations. We're just providing you the tool to help you, create what you need.
Beautiful. So I've seen the product demoed live, which was really cool. You showed me on your phone. I've seen it on the computer too. So impressive stuff. Walk me through beginning to end use case for, let's go, carrier that wants to help automate their back office type stuff. Walk me through what happens, and then we'll do the same thing for a factoring company. Let's act like we don't know what's going on. Just give me the whole deal.
All right. I'm a carrier, and I'm ready to get paid. So I log into my portal, or I'm on my phone, and I have my rate confirmation, right? And so I need to go into my factoring company's portal, and then I need to enter in my load ID. Well, how do I enter my load ID on a rate confirmation on my phone when the rate confirmation is on a different application, maybe PDF viewer, and now I've got to cut and paste that and paste it into the portal. The pickup location, I've got to put that in the portal, line haul them out. Well, imagine if I had to do that 100 times. Okay, and you probably say, "Well,
no, it's awful.
It's awful. Nobody lives for that kind of stuff." So we had one customer. She has grown her brokerage just because she said, "Marcus, I have to remove all this inefficiency." And she said, "What you have guys have allowed me to do is just upload my document and be lazy. Upload my documents, my BOL rate confirmation, press the button, and everything goes into the factoring company's back office. The invoice, the digital data that's copied in there, it's already put it in the accounts payable. The documents, if she forgets to put her POD in there, the factoring company is alerted. She's alerted by Duke that says, "Yeah, you're missing some documents," right? At first, she was frustrated because she was like getting this email. She's talking with this computer. She's using a person calling her, but the computer is telling her something is missing. Yeah. Same with her. Yeah. So it took some getting used to her of interacting with a computer, but she once she realizes it knows what it's talking about, she obeys, so to speak, and conforms. And so now she's grown. I think she's added like 5 or 6 new carriers, that she's brokering for, and she's looking to scale. And she's basically said that this, so from a carrier point of view, it's just a matter of uploading documents, pressing the button in the email. So you're using an email, so you don't need to use a separate app. So let me go back and say that you basically send an email to Duke. Duke is your liaison between the factoring company. You press a button in the email, and all that information is transmitted back to the factoring company with you have to not enter in anything.
It's pretty slick. What happens on the factoring side? I know there's some automation on the payment side as well that gets it ready to be, released for payment as well.
Absolutely. So you typically now that factoring company has a center of trust. They know that by the time it's been submitted to them, that all of the needed documents are there. So there's no need for them to really, one of our factoring partners said, we still look at the document, right? But I think this is until they get comfortable, right? But we have not gotten anyone say, hey, your AI allowed a document package to get through when it shouldn't have. In fact, they told us it was too sensitive. They wanted us to turn some stuff off.
Yeah, not a bad problem to have, especially in what the amount of fraud and some of the stuff going on. So
it can be a little sensitive, and that could be adjusted. So what are those sensitivities? Signature, sometimes LTL. Let's say, for instance, you require a BOL and proof of delivery for every stop, right? Our AI will reject it if you have that turned on. Yeah. And so now they can have confidence. And another thing is the data entry. So there's no need for, anyone to do data entry, invoice creation. So the only thing they're doing is looking at that package and inspecting it with just visual and pressing approve. Now, one of the things we also add is what we call our audit score. An audit score looks nothing more like a credit score. So when you think about a credit score, you go to a bank and you go to a dealership, you want to buy a car. There used to be a time people get on the phone and says, who is he like? Who does he hang out with? Right. Now they just hit that credit, that Equifax, and get that back to you. And then they say it's good. Or if you're at that 500, they take you to the back room and then they give you all the extra stuff and they tell you, and then, but Those are the exceptions. And so that's essentially what we create. We create a score around a variety of data points. What are those data points? Does the BOL correlate with the what we see on the rate confirmation? Does the carrier name correlate? Geolocations. We do some really cool stuff around geolocations, IP address locations, things on the phone. So there's a lot of things. Believe it or not, you can't commit a crime today. You got a breadcrumb trail everywhere. So I know everybody doesn't like to be tracked, but you're tracked. And so we use a variety of those things that the police would use to catch you if you committed a crime to now create kind of a score to make sure that you picked up and delivered where you said you were.
And the idea essentially is, if I take a picture on my phone, there's location data. If I upload something from my computer, there's an IP address, things of that nature, right? And essentially you're saying, hey, as a factoring company or, whoever's using it to verify that the paperwork is accurate, we're going through these checks and balances to help you fight fraud, right? This is coming from who they're saying it is. They actually executed the shipment. We've got location type data. It's super intricate.
Yeah, it is. And we've seen this model. We've seen it work before. Where? Uber Passenger.
Oh, yeah.
Uber Passenger, and I tell people, is nothing more than a shipping carrier broker marketplace. You've got the rider, and then you have the driver, the carrier. The rider is the shipper, and then they post the load that I want to be delivered. There is no invoicing a rider and then getting paid 75 days later. Uber's technology has made it where all the parties' information, the proof of delivery, the verification, all that, your bank information is connected with the driver's information with Uber, and all that payment happens. So that's where we have to go. And we don't move money. We're just a piece that validates that so that you can move money faster. And hopefully on the flip side, and I was talking with someone yesterday about this, that the shippers can get involved with this and let's stop the 75-day turnaround payment cycle.
Yeah. Listen, that will hurt a trucking company or a brokerage worse than most things, man. Those days to pay will get you. So if there's a way to accelerate that, it's certainly helpful.
Yeah.
Awesome. So before we wrap up here, man, a couple extra things I wanted to dig into. If you were to look back 20 years, 30 years at a younger version of Marcus, or just a younger entrepreneur, a kid, coming up, trying to figure out what they want, what's some stuff that you would tell a younger version of yourself to either think about or something that you would give for advice?
It will not be a straight path. It will not be a straight path. I don't know anybody who's ever achieved anything who's had a straight path. But as I say this oftentimes, this is my saying, the purpose of your life is not to take the easy path and have a nicely preserved body. You want to use that thing up in a cloud of smoke, sliding in, saying, what a ride. Don't leave anything out there. And so that's the model I've kind of gone through. I think there were times in my life that I started too late.
Yeah.
That's the only problem, Will. I started too late. And so now I tell younger people, and I've got a few, I would say disciples, so to speak, and they're killing it at age 30 as business owners. Yeah. That's the only thing I would tell myself is start early.
Beautiful, man. That's really good insight. We always typically wrap up in a similar manner. I want to give you an opportunity to tell us about anything coming up with Duke or yourself, any announcements that you have to make, anything that you want the listeners to know about.
We want our listeners to recognize what we did with the release of Slim. We've heard the feedback in the market in general. I don't know what happened at TIA, Will. I wasn't there. But when I came back on that money, the only thing I saw was AI was fake. I saw jokes. And I was like, what in the heck happened?
Yeah.
Why is there? And so that skepticism must have originated from some bad experiences.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. Yeah.
But it's not fake. It's not fake. And a lot of people, and I may be stoned if I say this, But if you keep saying we're waiting for the old days to reappear, and you've been saying that for 3 years, maybe this is the new normal.
Yeah.
All right. If this is the new normal, waiting on other business to fail is not a strategy.
It's not. It's really not. The COVID boom was a once in a lifetime thing, and freight is cyclical, right? Lots of ups and downs. We're certainly in a down right now, and a lot of people are waiting for it to peak back up. But you need to look at how you operate your business and make it more sustainable long term, regardless of what's going on with market volatility. So you make a really good point.
And so, with that being said, I asked my CEO, and I'm gonna let you close. I remember sitting in at Texas Instruments, and I said, "We've got all these opportunities in front of us. We don't know which one is going to win." And I was looking for him to tell me the answer and which one to pick.
Yep.
You know what his response to me was?
What'd he say?
My job was on the line too. He basically said, "Choose wisely."
I love it. I love it.
Choose wisely, people. But not doing anything is not a choice. You're gonna have to make a real choice, and so that's all. And I empathize because we've had to make the same choice. What I'm saying is the same choice. I've had to make some tough decisions these past few months, but
of course,
it's it's not easy. So
yeah, totally. Okay, last two questions. Favorite book?
It may seem cliche-ish, but I'm just gonna go with the Bible, and I'll tell you why. Yeah, I'm just gonna go why. It's great to be a husband, a father, and even a business owner. The best person he could have been a business leader was Jesus. He had the most followers. He had the best content, like that we still listen to, and he just had a way of engaging people. And so I use a lot of those principles kind of in my own life and in business. And then you've got different proverbs that I follow. It's a good book.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing. Last thing before we wrap up, how do we reach you? So what's the best way for people to reach Marcus and the Duke team?
My Cash App is no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No. Seriously, Marcus at DUKE.ai. I don't think I think there's another white Marcus Cooksey on LinkedIn, so don't get him confused with him. But I think there's another guy out there. We're connected, but look for Marcus Cooksey. Look for the black one, but my other buddy out there, he's Caucasian, he's white. But you can find me on LinkedIn, or please follow us on Instagram. Follow us. We're just DUKE.ai, and follow us on LinkedIn. And if I give you my personal number, then I'm afraid that the people who I didn't want to call me going to be calling. So
no sweat. We'll reach out. We got your email, LinkedIn, all that good stuff, man. I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much, Marcus. And it was fun to chop it up with you.
Yeah, same here. I enjoyed it. Will, take care, man. Keep up with the success, man.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.